Talk Radio, built for our community, by our community, and with hosts who look like you, live near you, and care about what you care about. 50,000 watts of truth right here in Southern California. KBLA Talk 1580. Listen live on your AM radio dial at 1580 or stream us live on our KBLA1580.com website or on our free KBLA 1580 app.
Unapologetically progressive.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
Jesse Jackson to the Jesse Show. KBLA Talk 1580. Today, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was set back to nearly first Reconstruction, which would be dated sometime between 1865 and 1896. The decision could ultimately reduce the number of Black and Hispanic members of Congress and boost Republicans' chances of winning more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, where they have a thin majority. States now have a freer hand to rejigger boundaries of voting districts at all levels of government. I'm going to say that again. At all levels of government, not just the Congress of the United States. The ruling centers on how race can be used in drawing political maps. The justice has concluded that Louisiana's creation of a second majority Black district went too far in relying on race, raising constitutional concerns under the Equal Protection Clause. The case grew out of a legal battle over Louisiana's congressional map after lower courts found the state's earlier boundaries likely diluted the voting strength of Black residents. In response, lawmakers approved a new map that added a second majority Black district, aiming to comply with the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court's decision signals a shift in how the court may approach the balance between the Voting Rights Act and constitutional limits on race-based decision-making. Critics warn the ruling could weaken protections for minority voters, while supporters say it reinforces limits on the use of race in government decisions. The outcome could have nationwide consequences, potentially affecting how states draw congressional districts and influencing the balance of power by making it easier to dismantle districts that have tended to favor Democratic candidates. Let me focus on the critics for a moment. Critics warn the ruling could weaken protection for minority voters, while supporters say it reinforces limits on the use of race in government decisions. That means the decision is broader than the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The limits of race in corporate boardrooms, the limits of the use of race in hiring teachers, the limits of the use of race in creating Black professors at major institutions, whether they be historically Black colleges and universities or PWI institutions, the limits of race in terms of corporations that may choose to give advantage to qualified airline pilots and others in the airline industry in any facet of American life. One must understand that the facts of the case are fundamentally different than the holding. That's true in major majority landmark decisions. The facts are almost inconsequential. Yes, Brown versus the Board of Education overcame the principle of separate but equal by establishing the principle of equal protection under the laws and by suggesting, indeed saying and declaring that separate but equal is inherently unequal. That was a case about education, but its consequences and its implications for every facet of American life affected the Americans with Disability Act. It affected women and the ways in which women have to be considered as disparately impacted groups. It affected how handicapped people are treated across our nation. It impacts Native Americans at every facet of what it means to be an original American. And certainly immigrants like Hispanics and others who migrated here to the United States over the last 2 centuries are impacted by a Supreme Court decision as broad as the Calais decision. While on the one hand, our focus will be on limited representation and its catastrophic impact in 2026, its impact in 2028, its impact in 2030, while gradual, it will come swiftly. And it will be nothing less than catastrophic. There are 62 African Americans who have the privilege of serving in the Congress of the United States, but some have suggested, even right here on this program, that we could be looking at by 2028 only 30 Blacks in Congress, given the number of challenges that are being offered by state legislators, by attorney generals in red states. And of particular concern are those states between Virginia and Texas, the former Confederate states, where the Voting Rights Act, particularly Section 5, which was struck down a number of years ago, forced those states to seek pre-clearance from the Justice Department before they could implement their plans. The implementation of their plans, at the end of every 10-year census period, there is a reapportionment plan that assigns lines across a state to determine how many Democrats, how many Republicans, and because of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the history of Democratic and Republican behavior in state legislatures, which always cut up districts and cut up states just for themselves, they managed to always overlook the fact that African Americans, Hispanics, and others, by law, were racially segregated and sent into certain communities for certain housing and other public accommodations. We could not drink at a white water fountain. We had to drink in our own water fountain. We couldn't stay in white hotels. We had to enter through the back of theaters. Because The communities themselves were segregated. The lines were drawn by the history of race in housing and in communities. The Voting Rights Act overcame this problem by allowing the state legislature to get a pre-clearance from the federal government to approve the Voting Rights Act districts in those states by drawing them in a way that gives us an opportunity to serve in the Congress and legislatures around the country. I close on this. Black Voters Matter wrote a piece that says 191 Black and Hispanic state representatives will lose their seats as well. The decision, nothing less than catastrophic. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Bakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Big Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin'. The soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot stomping, heart stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Polly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is a day that will live in infamy as we literally witness the end of Second Reconstruction. Many of us may not understand the full context of what it means to bring Reconstruction to an end, but at the end of First Reconstruction, there were, I believe, 16 African Americans in both the House and in the Senate. They were Lincoln Republicans out of loyalty to Abraham Lincoln, but by the Tilden Hayes Compromise of 1877 and the Plessy versus Ferguson decision of 1896, by the turn of the century, there were no Negroes left in Congress. The court moved on our representation and began Jim Crow. A number of authors, before I introduce our very special guest, Lisa Holder, a number of authors have suggested that in the post-Obama era, we were entering into a third Reconstruction. And even yesterday, my guest referred to the possibility at some point in time in the future of a fourth Reconstruction. Quite impossible to get to unless you go through a third Reconstruction, but every Reconstruction period in this country is first accompanied by a period of Jim Crow, of racial resistance to progress. And the period of racial resistance to progress took on new flight today before our nation. So Jim Crow 2.0 has actually begun. How long it will last, I do not know. What form it will take, I do not know. I spoke with a friend just a few moments ago who shared with me, Jesse, we may not see the end of this in our lifetime. And that's quite possibly true, but the resistance continues. Lisa Holder is the president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society, known for her groundbreaking appointment as a member of the California Reparations Task Force and more than 20 years of experience as a civil rights litigator and scholar. Lisa has made EJS a leader and premier coalition partner in the reparations movement in California and nationally. Lisa, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. So glad to have you back today.
Jesse, thanks for having me back. Sorry it's under these circumstances, but I always look forward to the conversation with you.
Lisa, I'm so glad that you're back, and I so trust and respect your expertise. Lisa, the consequences from your perspective of the Calais decision and the 6-3 decision by the majority.
Well, the Louisiana Calais decision, it is incredibly impactful and consequential in such a negative way for our democracy, for a multiracial, inclusive democracy, and a culture that embraces all. So devastating for the concept of equal opportunity for all, and extremely devastating to civil rights generally. What we're seeing here is the tearing down of a civil rights infrastructure that took over a century to erect. A civil rights infrastructure that ensures that all people have equal opportunity and that we embrace a multiracial democracy instead of a white supremacist, segregationist society that is fundamentally authoritarian because it replicates and relies on a caste system. So, what we have seen in Trump 1.0 and 2.0, right, over the 6-year period is a systematic dismantling of the Voting Rights Act and the leveraging of a partisan, frankly, segregationist court as a partner in that experiment to dismantle equality and equal opportunity. And I really do want to hone in on the court, right? On this highly ideological, partisan, and I think we can safely now say it's a segregationist court. But we need to compare that to the courts, majorities that we've had since the Voting Rights Act, right? Especially in the 70s through the aughts, right? Led by people like Harry Blackmun, who really understood Reconstruction 1.0, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, right? 15th Amendment is what allowed Black people to vote. 13th Amendment said that Black people were human and could not be enslaved. And the 14th Amendment said that all people are entitled to equal protection. And all of those amendments came online shortly after the Civil War ended. And the court has been interpreting those amendments for generations. And for, post Brown, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even into the aughts, we had a court that interpreted the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment the way that it was intended. They put it within a historical context. Harry Blackmun famously said, he was a court justice from the 70s through the 90s, in order to treat people equally, you must treat them differently. And in order to eliminate racism, you must first take race into account. Basically, what he was saying is that because we live in an America, in a society that was founded on profound forms of racism that affected every wake of life, every walk of life in America, you have got to have a period where you are leveling the field, where you are now trying to eliminate the outsized burdens that Black people and people of color had to bear in order for white people to have extreme privilege, right? And so this was a court that had a balanced understanding of what those Reconstruction amendments intended to do. And all of the statutes that came out of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, including the Civil Rights Act, they had an understanding that those statutes were a way to correct for centuries of discrimination, right? So we have a case here where folks are coming and saying that, redistricting or taking race into account is racist against white people, right? But when you understand the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, when you understand the Civil Rights Act and how those statutes, that matrix was intended to correct for extreme discrimination, for centuries of discrimination that was very much baked into the cake. You understand this is not discrimination against white people. This allows for inclusive democracy, right? And so that Black and brown and people of color and marginalized people can actually have equal access to the vote and some minimal access to power. Even status quo ante, right? That we had before this horrendous decision. It was still problematic because we know that Black folks still had to wait on lines twice as long, took twice as long for Black people to vote in any election than it did for white people because of structural racism, right? Because of less access to the polls, right? Because of having less administrators in polling booths. So it was still problematic, status quo ante. But now what we are seeing is exactly what you said. You know, we are going back to the Plessy, to the Plessy versus Ferguson era, to an era that embedded in our laws this separate and unequal construct, to full on Jim Crow. Because now you no longer have a mechanism to correct for all of the structural racism that is baked in our systems that ensures that Black people do not have access to power and do not have access to the vote and do not have an ability to vote for people who look like them and who may be able to advance some of their interests, right?
Absolutely, Lisa. I'm struck by your analysis, and I know that for the next several weeks leading up to the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, this is going to be a dominant conversation on whether or not we are celebrating 250th anniversary with 250 4th of Julys behind us, each one of them representing a different iteration of America, and or whether or not we are going back to some previous July 4ths where we did not have rights, where women did not have rights, where Donald Trump gets to exclude people with disabilities from serving their country in the military because they're not, some ideal standard of health based upon however the military has chosen to define it, or more specifically, Trump has decided to define it, or his administration. I do know this, that the highest standard in the Constitution was for white men to have own land, to have the franchise. And then there was resistance, this idea of a Bill of Rights that allowed freedom of speech, worship, assembly, certain protections when one confronts the criminal justice system, the Bill of Rights. Up until we get to this dividing line over race that's in the Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment, which says unless the right is explicitly written in the Constitution of the United States, the right that you think you have is actually a state right, and it's not a federal or a constitutional right. And then the ultimate dividing line, which has dominated American history, federal rights or states' rights, and behind the legal arguments of states' rights has been the history of race. Here we come with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment that says, if states' rights, if to be in slavery is a state right, then states' rights can never be human rights, whether it's education, healthcare, housing, or to be in slavery. So we need explicit language in the Constitution that says the end of slavery. We need specific language in the Constitution establishing citizenship rights. Explicit language in the Constitution guaranteeing Black men the right to vote, the 15th Amendment. And we begin this path, this new turning point in the Constitution, where human rights are larger and greater than federal rights and state rights. And so much of that, with the 19th Amendment guaranteeing women the right to vote and the 26th Amendment guaranteeing 18-year-olds the right to vote, is a new standard where the franchise itself has been elevated to a human right in our democracy. And I am struck today by the refusal of the court to acknowledge that the disparate impact and the history of race can no longer be considered a factor when so much of what is represented by the standard of human rights for every single immigrant who enters this country is largely established by the history of African Americans and the role and work that we put in, Lisa, to make this union more perfect. Lisa, we have 2 minutes before we come forward.
You know, you're hitting the nail right on the head. What are we dealing with right now? We are dealing culturally with a moment of complete Black erasure, right? That is the mandate of the apex predators on top. We need to erase this group of people because this group of people is emblematic of inclusive democracy. They are the engine of democracy in this country because they opened up the door to civil rights for everyone else to walk through, right? And so first order of business is to essentially completely annihilate power within that group because they are too much of a threat and they have established themselves as the engine of democracy in this country, and we have to tear that engine down, right? The other thing to take into consideration, the timing of this. There's no coincidence that we're seeing the attack on birthright citizenship, you know, the elimination of the Voting Rights Act right before the midterm elections, right? The timing of it could not be better for the segregationists. And so, you know, this is a moment of reckoning for those of us whose ancestors have fought to open up America, to create an open society, to create a democracy as opposed to an authoritarian regime. It's a moment of reckoning. What are we prepared to do?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Our very special guest is the president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society, Lisa Holder. When we come forward, Lisa's going to be joining us, and so is attorney C.K. Hoffler. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Timothy Brown, a black man, is suing New York City and the NYPD for $100 million after undercover detectives were seen beating him inside a Brooklyn liquor store.
It was wrong, and it was disgusting.
Brown says officers mistook him for a drug suspect, leaving him physically and emotionally scarred. Louisiana will have to redraw its congressional map after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a plan with a second majority black district. The case focused on how much race can be considered in redistricting. Black voters had sued after lawmakers approved a map with just one majority black district, despite black residents making up about a third of the state. And President Trump is welcoming the Artemis II astronauts to the White House after their historic mission. The four-person crew, including a black pilot, Victor Glover, returned earlier this month after a 10-day trip deeper into space than any crew before. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Fiji Airways on sale. Turn your next trip into something unforgettable with Fiji Airways. Fly nonstop from LAX to Fiji starting from just $349 one way. Your island time is waiting. Book now at FijiAirways.com. That's FijiAirways.com. Conditions apply.
Where the overlooked become unmissable. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelenos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Lots of places can expose you to identity theft.
Oh no.
That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Get the alerts that could make all the difference. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Things are changing fast and no one knows what comes next. Times like these make you realize just how important it is to be prepared. That's where My Patriot Supply comes in. They're America's #1 most trusted resource for survival food, solar power, water filtration systems, and more. Go to preparewithamerica.com to unlock a special offer that'll help you get ready for whatever comes our way. Go to preparewithamerica.com to see the special offer right now. That's preparewithamerica.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the need. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the need. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Supreme Court's right-wing majority just eviscerated one of the last protections of the Voting Rights Act. The 6-3 Calais decision will allow Republicans to redraw election maps across the South and secure as many as 19 new GOP House seats, shutting Black and Latino voters out of meaningful representation. Trump could rig every state map through political pressure, so his hand-picked Supreme Court just stepped in to do it for him. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is attorney Lisa Holder, president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society, known for her groundbreaking appointment as a member of the California Reparations Task Force and more than 20 years' experience as a civil rights litigator and scholar. Lisa has made EJS, the Equal Justice Society, a leader and premier coalition partner in the reparations movement in California and nationally. I was listening to the Black Information Network, or the Black News Network news program that is during our commercial breaks. And again, Lisa, the decision seems initially to be focused on Black representation, and it focuses on whether or not we will be able to vote for Black members of Congress in California if those districts indeed are drawn pursuant to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But I shared in my opening opine that there's no such thing as a narrow Supreme Court decision. It's broad-based consequences and ramifications. Well, they're extraordinary, and in this case, catastrophic. This case is going to be cited when qualified Black students are trying to get into medical school. This case is going to be cited when qualified candidates are trying to become astronauts at NASA who happen to be women or people of color. This decision is going to impact every corporate America, including the hiring of airline pilots, and it's going to be cited in cases when African Americans, Hispanics, and others argue that they have been victims of racial discrimination. And even though we may be using or consuming a product to the tune of 30 or 40% of a major corporation's consumer base, may be us, of course, we turn around and we want to know, well, do you have 30% of your lawyers and 30% of your accountants and 30% of your banking business? Are they in minority-owned banks? We can't even ask the question about our participation, even though we may be consumers at at a major corporation to the tune that we witnessed in the Target or the Walmart boycotts and challenges recently in reaction to Doge and the election of the 47th president of the United States. Can you share with our listeners for a minute, from your perspective and your historical scholarship and experience, just how broad and what the implications of this decision could ultimately mean?
Well, you know, what we litigators do, skilled litigators, when we're trying to salvage, you know, democratic principles, democratic values, and equal opportunity, we try to parse the language and limit the import of the holding of a case, right? That's what we do.
Good luck with that.
I'm just being candid, right? It's going to be very tricky with this one. It's going to be very tricky because it is extremely broad. It is an extremely comprehensive attack on race-conscious programming, or any type of programming that allows you to take race into account to correct for structural inequality and structural discrimination. It is basically the court now throwing down the gauntlet and saying, no, we don't care what the framers of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment said. We are going to completely reinterpret and create a new construct for understanding the role that race plays in our understanding of equality in America, and how we make laws around that and how we interpret laws around that. And we're basically saying that anything that takes race into account is discriminatory against white people. Essentially, anything that takes the race of marginalized people, marginalized groups into account, specifically African Americans, is basically an attack on white people, and we are going to interpret the law accordingly. You know, this is an inflection point, really. We know that the statistics show, although we're in a regime now that tries to prevent us from collecting data, from the data that we previously have collected, we know that by 2040, people of color will be the majority of America, right? And white people will be a minority in America. And so there's this fervor right now by segregationists, by white supremacists to say, look, we only have 20 years as the majority. And so we have got to consolidate power so that when we are a numerical minority, we can still have an outsized amount of power, and we can still protect all of the privileges that have been handed down to us over generations, right? And so that's why I say you can't look at any one of these Supreme Court decisions or any of the policies that we're seeing to eliminate diversity and equity. You cannot look at them in isolation. You know, we've been trained not to think critically in this country and not to see things comprehensively and connect the dots. But, you know, the attack on birthright citizenship, right, which is the cornerstone of the 13th Amendment, right? Remember, birthright citizenship was it's actually also the 13th Amendment, a cornerstone of both the 13th and 14th Amendments, because it basically overturned Dred Scott, right? Right, which basically said, look, no, African Americans are human beings. They do have rights, which must be respected. And you're going to come into this country, you're going to be born into this country with those rights. They are almost divinely given to you and conferred upon you, right? So you have the rights of citizenship, and you are acknowledged and recognized as a human being. And then over time, those rights expanded to all people of color and to all immigrants born in this country. Now we are seeing an attack on something as fundamental as birthright citizenship, which will basically say that there's going to be a caste of people who have to sort of prove their lineage, right, in order to have basic human rights in this country. They're not going to be conferred upon you because you are born on this soil, right? And so again, that is really that's also can be broken down when you drill down. That is about making sure that immigrants, people of color, do not have access to the franchise, do not have access to the vote, because that way you can ensure that they will not become the majority of voters and have majority power through voting. And this is just part, you have to see this attack on voting rights within that broader context of ensuring that minorities do not become the majority of the voting power in this country.
Lisa, hang with me for a minute. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're not going to get a more insightful look at the devastating Calais decision that was rendered today, other than right here on KBLA. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Fred Martin, founder of Compton Kids Club. I just want to talk about the authenticity and tell y'all about my homeboy, Tom Steyer. Tom is a rock star. When I met him, Tom gave a grant to schools in San Francisco. All the kids were on probation. We were flying instructors for 2 years to come and help those kids doing performing arts and turning their life around. Some of the kids that he supported, they've graduated from UCLA. Let's fast forward. Tom is in schools in Compton, hanging out with the kids in the piano classes. Brother Tom Steyer hangs out in the studio with us. These are the seeds that he's planted. This has nothing to do with elections. What's coming out of his mouth is not a campaign speech. It's authentic. And when he say he walks away from a business because he want to do his values, he ain't making that up because he's running for governor. This man is real.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
On breakfast and collard greens, I got what you need if you want it.
Los Angeles, the wait is over. For 1 year, Lonell Soul Food Cuisine has been feeding this community with love, and now it's time to celebrate. You're invited to the 1 year anniversary and official grand opening of Lonell Soul Food Cuisine, where every plate tells a story and every bite feels like home. We're talking golden fried chicken, slow cooked collard greens, cornbread straight from the oven, and desserts that'll have you calling your mama. Come through, bring the family, bring the neighbors, bring everybody. Lonell Soul Food Cuisine, 8501 Vermont Avenue in Los Angeles. This is more than a restaurant. It's a celebration of culture, community, and the kind of cooking that warms you from the inside out. 1 year strong, and he's just getting started. Lonell Soul Food Cuisine, 8501 Vermont Avenue, Los Angeles. Come hungry, leave happy, always.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of a utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's giving us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foster, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
You better work.
She's rooted in culture and rising in power. Los Angeles City Council member Karen D. Price Jr. invites you to the District 9 Women's Leadership Summit, a powerful gathering celebrating the women who shape our communities. Join us Sunday, May 3rd from 1 to 6 p.m. Registration is open now, but space is limited. District 9 residents receive special priority. This event is free. Call 323-846-2651 to reserve your spot. That's 323-846-2651. Be rooted, be powerful, be there.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The midterm elections are upon us. It is voting season once again. Common Cause's motto is fighting for the democracy we deserve. In service of that goal, Common Cause puts its state and national policy expertise, massive network of grassroots supporters, and nonpartisan approach into action to strengthen our democracy against the challenges we face today. They work at every level of government on priorities that impact each of our lives, like defending the right to vote, limiting big money's influence on our elections, holding public officials accountable, and more. Common Cause is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. They seek to empower all people to make their voices heard in the political process. This election may be the most important one ever. If you'd like to make a donation or volunteer in service to the Constitution, please visit commoncause.org. That's commoncause.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Lisa Holder, president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society. Time magazine selected her for its 2025 The Closers list of 25 Black leaders working to end inequality. Ms. Holder is a nationally recognized award-winning trial attorney specializing in equal protection, education equity, employment discrimination, constitutional policing, and international human rights. Lisa, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lisa, I am so intrigued by your thinking on the broad nature of the decision, whose ramifications will be broadly felt, some of which will be immediate in the political sense. But can you share with our listeners the chilling effect of this decision as this debate continues to move forward?
Yeah, there's. I was trying to remember the name of the scholar who framed these issues around structural racism and the history of racism in this country with the understanding that whiteness in this country is normative. It's not considered race. Anything else is raced, right? So whether you're Black, Latino, AAPI, you have a race, but whiteness is normative and everything is compared to that as the standard bearer essentially for humanity, right? And so when you say you can't consider race. You're not saying you can't consider, you're saying any consider of race is an attack on whiteness, right? And when you think about it that way, I think it becomes clearer what's happening in the big picture, right? So for instance, when you talk about race, if you talk about race in the classroom, if you have a Black studies class or an Indigenous studies class, that becomes anti-white racism because you're talking about race. You're somehow attacking the normative humanity by bringing race into the conversation, right? And what that does essentially is that it does not allow people to embrace what is the reality of their identity, which is racialized, right? Because you cannot talk about your race anymore. You can't educate students about the history of identity and racism in this country and why you are experiencing the world the way you are every single day. And what that does, I want to talk about the psychological effects of this, right? Because what we're talking about, the bigger picture, is the story of power and belonging, right? And the cultural attacks that we're seeing on Blackness, on people of color, on any multicultural understanding of America has a profound impact on people's sense of belonging, right? And it is extremely destabilizing, especially for young people, especially for children, right? When they can't see people who look like them in the schools, when they can't talk about their experience, their identity in schools. When you have a case like this, it really flips the construct now and says, no, race will not be considered. That does not mean whiteness will not be considered, because whiteness is not race, right? But everybody else is raced, and you will not be considered. You do not belong. This has a profound psychological chilling effect on people's sense of belonging, on people's sense of hope, on their identity, on their self-esteem. Practically speaking, it also has a chilling effect in terms of policy, in terms of practice, right? In terms of, institutions that do want to embrace multiculturalism, that do want to embrace true democracy and inclusivity. They're afraid to. Because they're going to get sued, and the person who sues them is going to win, because they said, well, the fact that you had a group that talked about race in this institution is anti-white. It's racist. That's an attack on whiteness because you talked about another race, right? You talked about race, period, right? Once you talk about that, that is an attack on the norm of humanity.
Let me just
again, we are being completely dehumanized in the way that our ancestors were.
I'm hoping that you're going to be with me for part of the next hour, even if you want to hang around for the entire hour. I'd love it, Lisa, because I think the conversation deserves some consideration. I just want to remind everyone that in 1954, when the Brown versus the Board of Education decision was decided, that laid the foundation for modern America, it was an all-white male court. Today, we have a Supreme Court that is the most diverse court in the history of the United States. Black woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, voting with the dissent. Clarence Thomas, a black man, voting with the majority. We have Kagan and Sotomayor also voting with the dissent. On the, if you will, the liberal or progressive side of the court, we have a white woman on the conservative side of the court and some extreme right-wingers on the conservative side of the court. And yet it was the all-white male court that laid the foundation for modern America and Second Reconstruction. The most diverse court, given the diversity of opinions on the court, laid the foundation for a return to Jim Crow. I find that shocking. Which means it requires, as Lisa has demonstrated today, a higher level of understanding of what we are looking at, not solely on the basis of the color line, but also the ideological line, the thinking line, the direction line that matters in this discourse. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Lisa Holder is going to still be with us, and I'm looking forward to our continued conversation on a devastating day that will live in infamy in the history of our people in the United States. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Timothy Brown, a black man, is suing New York City and the NYPD for $100 million after undercover detectives were seen beating him inside a Brooklyn liquor store.
It was wrong and it was disgusting.
Brown says officers mistook him for a drug suspect, leaving him physically and emotionally scarred. Louisiana will have to redraw its congressional map after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a plan with a second majority black district. The case focused on how much race can be considered in redistricting. Black voters had sued after lawmakers approved a map with just one majority black district, despite black residents making up about a third of the state. And President Trump is welcoming the Artemis II astronauts to the White House after their historic mission. The four-person crew, including a black pilot, Victor Glover, returned earlier this month after a 10-day trip deeper into space than any crew before. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Fiji Airways on sale. Turn your next trip into something unforgettable with Fiji Airways. Fly nonstop from LAX to Fiji starting from just $349 one way. Your island time is waiting. Book now at FijiAirways.com. That's FijiAirways.com. Conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A lot of folks in Lakers Nation believe tonight's game against Houston is a must-win situation for the Lakers, and I agree. The Lakers need to put the Rockets away tonight to get ready for Oklahoma City in the next round. Two main reasons why the Lakers need to win Game 5 tonight at Crypto.com. Going back to Houston for Game 6 on Friday would be a demoralizing development for the Lakers. It would also give the Rockets more confidence, and then there's the possibility that Kevin Durant might be healthy for Game 6. Point number 2, OKC is already resting after sweeping Phoenix on Monday. The Lakers do not need the distraction of another game with the Rockets when they need to start preparing for the defending NBA champs after tonight. The Lakers should be on notice to deliver their best performance of the postseason so far. A loss would make things very uncomfortable. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, host of The Voice of Reason, weeknights at 7 p.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580, with a personal invitation for you to join me and Insight.me as we present The Healing Box, live at Inglewood's world-famous Miracle Theater, Saturday evening, May 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, I understand your attachment style has been running your life like a rogue algorithm, and nobody has had the courage to press pause. Until now, Dr. Bakoya McCall and yours truly are curating a night where clinicians, spiritualists, and an all-star panel of Black woman healers like Dr. Shalonda Sunshine Crawford, Dr. Jashana Johnson, and spiritualist Precious McGill will join some amazing spoken word artists and the legendary comedian Louis Dix to diagnose, disrupt, and heal your relational wreckage in real time. Listen, bring your trauma. As a matter of fact, bring your baby mama. No, bring your testimony. And if you're still texting your ex at 2 a.m., baby, you're not just invited, you're the target demo. Tickets are moving fast, so grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before your dating history gets flagged as a pre-existing condition. That's themiracleinglewood.com. We'll see you there Saturday, May 23rd at 7 p.m.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're now in our second hour with Reverend Dr. Cartier, who will be joining us in just a moment. But in this hour, I'm particularly grateful that Lisa Holder, president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society, is with us. Ms. Holder is a nationally recognized award-winning trial attorney specializing in equal protection, education, equity, employment discrimination, and constitutional policing and international human rights law. Lisa, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me, Jesse. It's great to be here.
Lisa, we've been talking about this on this show for several months now because of the impending nature of things that have been said in the past by Justice Thomas. The fact that Justice Roberts worked, I believe, for Chief Justice Rehnquist, a number of members of the conservative coalition on the Supreme Court have had internships with various federal jurists whose positions have been to the right of Attila the Hun on questions of race. And so I was reflecting upon something, and this is going to take just a moment, reflecting upon something that Abraham Lincoln wrote and spoke about in his House Divided speech. And he talked specifically about 4 carpenters, each with different professions, each operating at different times within the government. And yet when all of their plans came together, the plans formed the perfect framing of a house. Here's the quote. "We cannot absolutely know that all of these exact adaptations are the result of pre-concert. But when we see a lot of framed timbers, different portions of which we know have been gotten out of different times and different places by different workmen, in this case, Stephen, Franklin, Roger, and James, for instance, and we see these timbers joined together and see they exactly make the frame of a house or a mill, all the tenons and mortices exactly fitting, and all the lengths and proportions of the different pieces exactly adapted to their respective places, and not a piece too many or too few, not omitting any scaffolding, or if a single piece be lacking, we see the place in the frame exactly fitted and prepared to yet bring such a piece in such a case. We find it impossible not to believe that Stephen and Franklin and Roger and James all understood one another from the beginning and all worked upon a common plan or draft up from the first lick that was struck." In that moment, I think if Stephen Douglas, the incumbent Democratic senator from Illinois, the author of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and Franklin, the Democratic president immediately preceding Buchanan, who signed the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and Roger Taney, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who wrote the majority opinion in Dred Scott, and James Buchanan, the sitting Democratic president. Of course, the Democratic Party would be the party of the Confederacy, who succeeded Pierce and supported the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Dred Scott decision. I see, Lisa, Mitch McConnell, Reagan, Roberts, Trump, the Heritage Foundation, and the Federalist Society all operating in different pieces over time. But when the decision ultimately comes down, striking down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, their pieces seem to fit together as in the perfect frame of a house, as if they were all worked upon a pre-concerted plan. Lisa, this has been a deep decision over a long period of time to get to where we are.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you sort of use Lincoln's quote foundationally. I mean, you can say many things about Lincoln, but he was extremely logical. Right? He talked about the transitive property. If you have 2 things that are equal to each other, and then you have a third thing, the first and the third must necessarily be equal to one another. Right? It's just logical what you're saying. And the fact is that, I always say we're about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America. If you're talking about America as being synonymous with democracy, then this country is only 75 years old, right? Because this democratic, inclusive America was born after Brown and after the Voting Rights Act and after the Civil Rights Act. So we are celebrating 75 years of American democracy. There's no 250 years. You cannot have a democracy built upon a slave economy, right? And you cannot have a democracy when you have a caste system, right? And that's what we had for those first nearly 200 years since the independence. So what we are moving back to now, we're moving back toward that caste system. We're moving back toward that authoritarian system. And in the 50s and the 60s, after Brown, after the Civil Rights Act, you saw a coalition of forces, of segregationist, repressionist forces coming together, galvanizing to really destroy the inclusive democracy that Brown announced and that the Civil Rights Act consolidated and solidified. Right?
Lisa?
And so when you're talking about Reagan and this sequence, we're going all the way back to that point.
Lisa?
Right? Yeah.
Lisa, give me one moment. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, The Politics of Our Faith. Reverend Dr. S. Todd Urey is with us. We'll be back in just a moment. We'll be coming forward to have a deep conversation on the Calais decision. Lisa will be with us for the next segment, and then she will obviously depart. I'm grateful for her time. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the story gets twisted, who's going to tell the truth? When they cut the microphones, who's still talking? When history gets rewritten, who remembers what really happened? We do. KBLA Talk 1580. Black media isn't just important right now, it's essential. Because when mainstream outlets move on, we stay. When the headlines ignore our communities, we don't. When decisions are being made that affect Black lives in our schools, our neighborhoods, our economy, KBLA is in the room. This is more than radio. This is a lifeline, a record, a rallying cry. Black stories, Black voices, Black power.
The heat is on
the air and in the culture. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay connected, stay informed, stay loud.
Stand up!
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
The joint will be jumping. Ebony Repertory Theater, in association with Big Street Films, brings you one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Tony Award winner, Ain't Misbehavin', the soulful, swinging celebration of the music of Fats Waller. From the rollicking to the romantic, this show is pure magic, full of the songs that defined an era and the voices that'll make you forget everything else for a night. Foot stomping, heart stirring, unforgettable. Don't miss Ain't Misbehavin' at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center, starring Lettucey, directed by Ren T. Brown. This is the night out you've been waiting for. Tickets are going fast, so don't wait. Grab yours now at ebonyrep.org or call the box office today at 323-964-9766. Ebony Repertory Theater, bringing the culture, keeping the legacy alive.
Ain't Misbehavin' runs May 21st through June 8th at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Get your tickets now.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. Come on wanna talk with me? Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays and the Politics of Our Faith with Dr. S. Todd Yeary, Esquire. Dr. Yeary is the principal of the Yeary Firm, a Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm who also serves as the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore and affiliates, former chief executive of the Rainbow Coalition, the organization founded by my father. Dr. Yeary's social justice work includes past political action chair for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP, founding principal of Community Churches for Community Development. He is both a lawyer who practices in a courtroom every single day, and he preaches every Sunday morning, a civil rights attorney and public policy advocate. And joining us in this segment, Lisa Holder, president of the Oakland, California-based Equal Justice Society. Time magazine selected her for its 2025 The Closers list of 25 Black leaders working to end inequality. Ms. Holder is a nationally recognized award-winning trial attorney specializing in equal protection, education equity, employment discrimination, constitutional policing, and international human rights law. Dr. Yeary, please meet Attorney Holder. Attorney Holder, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary.
Great to meet you, Dr. Yeary.
Good to meet you today as well. This is Congressman an interesting kind of inflection point where as I was listening to Dr. Holder kind of lay out the historical continuity, we have to walk away from this decision remembering that America was not just an experiment. America was an experiment and is an experiment with a particular and peculiar kind of design. And so the egalitarian notion that we bring to what it means to be an American and a citizen of the United States of America, America's bigger than the USA if we know anything from geography. That design has not been altered nor modified, and we see it in today's ruling. Still reading through the 90 or so pages of the decision, it gives a rationale. And that rationale points us to key assumptions about not only history, but in many ways, destiny tied to political engagement and opportunity. And so when gerrymandering now becomes basically a political whim, unless you can prove some sort of intent, I would caution us to think about not only what this means for voting rights protections when it comes to disparate impact. That's a legal framing. That it says to me the next warning sign is not only what happens with voting rights, but also what happens with Title VI. And Title VI actually allows for a disparate impact analysis of how the outcomes tied to the use of federal dollars affects different groups based on the outcomes, not the intent. And so this is not just a decision in isolation. I think it is a decision in sequence to kind of continue to check the marks, the boxes of what the erosion and the degradation of civil rights progress of the 50s and 60s will be, other than ultimately left in tatters on the cutting room floor, simply because the political outcomes that lead to a 6-3 decision are now in our rearview mirror, and we've got to figure out how we're going to fight it going forward.
Todd, let me just let me throw this out to you, Dr. Yeary, and to Attorney Holder. This is based on my experience: 17 years in Congress, 61 years on this earth, in various organizations, most notably the organizations founded by my father, and the extraordinary work for 6 decades that he did around the Voting Rights Act, including, with I am convinced, being the one African American who traveled to hundreds of counties around this country registering people to vote. In this moment, we need a hero. And I'm not talking about a personality, because the personality itself may not be available, or a savior, if you will. And the savior may not be available. So our basic inclination is In the midterms, we need to run to the Democratic Party, turn out as many votes as we can, regain control of Congress, which I absolutely agree with. But in a real sense, it's somewhat complicated in that the battle, attorney Holder, between Democrats and Republicans in state legislatures in light of the Calais decision will look less to the Voting Rights Act and the opinion of Black people in that process, and more to the numbers of what they think they can squeeze out of a state for their various majorities, which is a return to a kind of Jim Crow ethic politically, in that the Voting Rights Act forced Democratic and Republican state legislatures since the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to consider race as a factor in the drawing of districts. Without race being a factor, we just become good old Democrats. We just hope we get a liberal Democrat who will speak to the issues of poverty and healthcare and education in our district. We don't care what color they are, or we do care what color they are. We just don't have the option to vote for someone like ourselves. My producer is sharing with me right now that we have a clip. Let's run the clip.
In light of today's Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act, do you want Republican states in the South to look at redrawing congressional districts before the midterms?
You have to tell me, when did the ruling come out? I've been with the astronauts. I've been with contractors because we're trying to get the ballroom built ahead of schedule. It's right on schedule. It's ahead of schedule now. I want to keep it that way.
Came out today,
and I was also with commissioning. Tell me about the what happened.
Well, some think that the ruling could create more Republican-held congressional seats in the South.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's the kind of ruling I like. When did that happen?
Well, the Supreme Court ruled on it this morning.
Really? Is that right?
When did it come out just now? No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for
a win for Republicans?
I love it.
But my question.
This is a very good. We can end this news conference right now. I want to read it.
My question,
wow.
Mr. President, is that some Republican governors have not responded in terms of what they're going to do. I guess early voting, for example, in Louisiana.
Republican governors, what?
Republican governors.
What about it?
Early voting begins Saturday there, for instance. Should they redraw the map in the next couple of
I would. I mean, it depends. I mean, some states don't need to redraw, and some do. I mean, I know what the concept of the ruling. I just haven't seen the result. Yeah, I would say generally I would think that they would want to do it. Some are greatly helped, and some, it didn't make much difference. Yeah, I would say they would do that.
18 seats are at stake in this potential decision and the nonchalant way in which the president responded to the Voting Rights Act. Lisa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend not to base my comments on reacting to the president's the way that he frames things or sees things, but it's just too reactive when the big picture is so much more important. So setting his reaction aside, we just have I think this is a moment. As we said, it's an inflection point. This is a moment of thinking very broadly about coalition, about multiracial, multi-generational coalitions, about the kind of rainbow framing of collective action that your father championed so brilliantly. Because the ability for Black people to survive in this moment is definitely being attacked, has definitely been diluted, and it's going to be very important for us to be working in coalition with like-minded folks who believe in multiracial, inclusive democracy. The choice is clear, right? This is an existential moment. Do you believe that we should go forward as a country where we have a sense of shared values, where we have a sense of understanding that is multicultural, that is about including everyone, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of ableism, regardless of race, a country that is inclusive, a country that is truly democratic, or do we embrace white supremacy and white predominance? It's that simple. And if you believe in multiracial inclusive democracy, if you believe that that's what freedom looks like and that's what America should look like, then it's time for collective action. And that can include everyone, right, who embraces an ideology of fairness and of equal opportunity and of inclusivity. And it really is time to, do it the way that that the elders did, to do it the way that folks like Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King and your father did it, arm in arm, marching in the streets. And that's the kind of collective action that is going to force legislators to take account of what voters who may be in the minority are thinking, because they're not siloed, they're not isolated, they're alone. They are working in conjunction with other members of the polity, and that is power, right? Take it to the streets, march, civil disobedience, and say, no, we want to embrace multicultural, inclusive democracy. That is the America that we want to live in. We do not want to go back to a segregationist, white supremacist society.
Lisa, I associate myself with everything that you've said. That is certainly the America that we want to build. Todd, I've got to frame this this thing in light of what the president said. First of all, he responded to a decision that he did not read, didn't know anything about.
Shocking.
Shocking. Yeah, right. He didn't read anything. But he shows up not long ago at the Supreme Court in the middle of the birthright citizenship arguments, for no other reason from my perspective other than to intimidate the court. You've got Mike Johnson over in the House of Representatives who won't pass or even consider the John Lewis voting rights legislation. You've got a foundation laid by Reagan and the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society on the selection of these judges. And they emerge from this process perfectly framing the end of Second Reconstruction, Todd, as we know
it. Yeah, I mean, the current occupant of the White House is not necessarily our best example of where things are. One, because he didn't read it. Two, he only liked it because it seemed to be favorable, as he understands the Voting Rights Act, to apply to certain issues for his constituents, right? So beyond that, trying to dumb down the discussion to get it on the president's level is not going to be a useful exercise. As a matter of fact, it's going to be more frustrating, right? I shouldn't have to play stupid to be in that conversation. We got to read the document. There has to be a sense of, kind of channeling your late father, our late leader, in the moral outrage that has to be rising in this moment. We cannot fight what we do not understand. We've got to read the ruling and understand how it applies. Early in the document, there's an example lifted up, and let's be very clear that it is Justice Alito who wrote the decision. Let's set that off to the side. He's ideologically one who has been very much open to reshaping what we've come to know as precedent or stare decisis in the legal community about how the court deals with prior court rulings. So he's fine with this. That means then that he's opening the door for other things. We had Roe v. Wade. Now we've got voting rights yet again after the Shelby decision. But they use the example of an algorithm. And this is where I think the court misses it. The majority misses it. The example they give is if a state wants to use an algorithm in a computer to draw districts based on certain expectations, all right? Whether or not the districts are contiguous, whether or not there's a mix of party affiliation. It does not deal with going upstream, that if we look at drawing contiguous districts, that's pretty easy because we've grown up in a system where, depending on which side of the track you lived on, your district, your neighborhood was contiguous. And so simply because I create this map born out of boundaries, that the boundaries themselves carry with it the kind of indiscriminate, discriminatory conduct because the algorithm on its face is race neutral. Therefore, we must look at the outputs based on the algorithm to always be, therefore, race neutral.
Wow.
And so it is a narrowing and a loss of sophistication of understanding how these things are linked simply because you wanted to give a ruling.
Todd, let me thank Lisa Holder for her time. I'm so grateful for her contribution. Lisa, can't wait to have you back on the program. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More with The Politics of Our Faith with Dr. S. Todd Eury when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. President Trump says there is a chance astronauts could walk on the moon during his time in office.
We don't like to say definitely because then you say, oh, we failed.
He made those comments while welcoming the Artemis II crew to the White House, including Black pilot Victor Glover. The 4 astronauts recently returned from a 10-day mission that took them deeper into space than any crew before. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says Hollywood is, quote, turning a corner, end quote, as local production increases. Variety reports TV, film, and commercial production in LA is up 16% from the previous quarter, though still below historic levels. And South Carolina State University students are protesting this year's reported commencement speaker. Students at the HBCU in Orangeburg are speaking out against Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott, who is running for governor, speaking at the May 8th ceremony. Her office confirmed she accepted the invitation. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Fiji Airways on sale. Turn your next trip into something unforgettable with Fiji Airways. Fly nonstop from LAX to Fiji starting from just $349 one way. Your island time is waiting. Book now at FijiAirways.com. That's FijiAirways.com. Conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A lot of folks in Lakers Nation believe tonight's game against Houston is a must-win situation for the Lakers, and I agree. The Lakers need to put the Rockets away tonight to get ready for Oklahoma City in the next round. 2 main reasons why the Lakers need to win Game 5 tonight at Crypto.com. Going back to Houston for Game 6 on Friday would be a demoralizing development for the Lakers. It would also give the Rockets more confidence, and then there's the possibility that Kevin Durant might be healthy for Game 6. Point number 2, OKC is already resting after sweeping Phoenix on Monday. The Lakers do not need the distraction of another game with the Rockets when they need to start preparing for the defending NBA champs after tonight. The Lakers should be on notice to deliver their best performance of the postseason so far. A loss would make things very uncomfortable. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our voices aren't the minority opinion. They're the American conscience. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
This is America. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You better work.
She's rooted in culture and rising in power. Los Angeles City Council member Karen D. Price Jr. invites you to the District 9 Women's Leadership Summit, a powerful gathering celebrating the women who shape our communities. Join us Sunday, May 3rd from 1 to 6 p.m. Registration is open now, but space is limited. District 9 residents receive special priority. This event is free. Call 323-846-2651 to reserve your spot. That's 323-846-2651. Be rooted, be powerful, be there.
When temperatures climb, LADWP wants to help you stay cool indoors, starting in your attic. With quality attic insulation, your home can stay more comfortable during hot summer days and help lower your energy bills year-round. It's a smart way to save. And for a limited time, LADWP has increased the attic insulation rebates to make upgrading more affordable. Act now to start saving. Visit ladwp.com/attic. That's ladwp.com/attic.
Lots of places can expose you to identity theft.
Oh no.
That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity, which is way more than anyone can do on their own. If we find anything suspicious, like new loans or changes to your financial accounts, we alert you right away, all through text, phone, email, or the LifeLock app. Get the alerts that could make all the difference. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Things are changing fast and no one knows what comes next. Times like these make you realize just how important it is to be prepared. That's where My Patriot Supply comes in. They're America's #1 most trusted resource for survival food, solar power, water filtration systems, and more. Go to preparewithamerica.com to unlock a special offer that'll help you get ready for whatever comes our way. Go to preparewithamerica.com to see the special offer right now. That's preparewithamerica.com.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. The National Republican Campaign Committee praises the Supreme Court Voting Rights Act ruling, quote, a victory for the Constitution. Dr. Yeary, just before we had to go to break, you were sharing with us at the beginning of the decision that the case is being made for an algorithm. An algorithm is the example that they use to basically tell me how I'm living or the conditions under which I'm living, and that the future of drawing congressional districts may not take into account the history of discrimination or race biases whatsoever, but draw districts completely or so-called algorithmically, I'm not going to say fairly, but algorithmically, without the input of human hands and human consciousness that takes into account the very nature of the need to desegregate the Congress of the United States and to desegregate state legislatures, to desegregate city councils, to desegregate every legislative office and offices throughout the United States. Am I right or wrong, Todd?
What the court has done is basically given a blueprint for how to guarantee post-textual outcomes from pretextual intent. We know about pretext, right?
Help us with that now.
I say that I want to, approach you for this reason. Supposedly, you're driving your truck. I believe I see a tail light out, and therefore I stop you. In reality, I am suspicious of you because of who you are and that you're in the truck at all and what side of town you're on. What allows me now to stop you is my assertion that my real intent is the taillight. My true intent has nothing to do with the taillight, but because I put that forth first, it is then given sanction and credibility that then allows me to do anything else, nefarious intent, to be played out at your expense. And unless you can prove that in my head, it really had nothing to do with the taillight, it had to do with I didn't like you, your person, your race, your presence, the kind of car you were driving, then that motivation has no reference or validity, because pretextually, I want contiguous districts, I want to make this about party. Well, party is often a byproduct of policy. Policy is often associated with who are the policies for. And so I don't get to say it has some sort of disparate impact. And then what curiously the court says is that it's tied to Section 1 of the 15th Amendment. I've been thinking about this since the ruling came down because you have written about this, about how do we guarantee the right to vote and enshrine it in a way that avoids this kind of constitutional crisis where we find ourselves today. And it is simply that this ruling, I'm going to read it to you. The legislature might want to minimize changes in the prior map, the prior voting map, avoid districts with discontiguous territory, avoid splitting counties or municipalities. It might impose a certain standard of compactness aimed to protect some or all incumbents or promote the prospects of a particular political party. When this algorithm is used, the map it produces may place a particular voter or group of voters in a district in which a majority generally agrees, generally disagrees, or sometimes agrees with their voting preferences. But in any event, the quote, opportunity of these members of the electorate to contribute their votes to a winning cause is whatever opportunity results from the application of the state's combination of permissible criteria. That is what our randomly selected individual voter and group of voters can expect regarding their opportunity to elect a preferred candidate. And under Section 2, a minority voter is entitled to nothing less and nothing more.
You know, let me tell you what I find horrific about that rationale. While it puts the onus on individual voters in a congressional district to participate in majorities or minorities or whatever the language was that they used in the context of voting for a member of Congress, whether you agree that you live, let's say, for example, in Cook County, but you also have a district that goes all the way down to Champaign-Urbana, which is something I have some recent experience with, where it's rural, but then it's farm. It means, at least for me, that as the farm, agricultural, rural-based part of the district begins to expand, and the demographics of the urban African-American district expand or decrease, you will see a rural, conservative, red MAGA candidate, well-financed with a lot of money, who doesn't have to speak to the urban interests at all in order to receive the Republican nomination of their candidacy, come up into the northern area, do a little campaigning here and there, but all of the black voters that come together in the general election will not be enough to overcome the racial polarization in that congressional district. And it misses, Todd, this key point. It's not about equality in voting just amongst the people in the district. It's about the desegregation of Congress itself. You see, under the court's rationalization, you could end up with an all-white male Congress, because it puts the onus on voters at the local level to be in a majority and then to stay in that majority, not only in the primary, but in the general election. But it fails to recognize that Congress is the institution that's practicing racial discrimination. So how do you take someone out of Houston, Texas, out of Dallas, some group of people, and give them an opportunity out of 435 members of Congress to serve, to desegregate that building? Because most of the nation's history, there were mostly white men in that building. From 1787 to the present, that's true. The idea of minorities in Congress, the idea of women in Congress, is a relatively new phenomenon against the backdrop of the nation's history. But this court doesn't acknowledge that Congress can be racist. It acknowledges that somehow at the local level, the voter themselves, let's talk about how they're going to interact across the street from each other, as opposed to the recognition that, you know, Todd Urey's voice on the floor of the Congress, Freddie Haynes's voice, Jasmine Crockett's voice on the floor of the Congress, Charlie Rangel's voice John Conyers' voice, Maxine Waters' voice, or Karen Bass's voice, or Ron Dellum's voice matters on the floor of the Congress, and they simply can't get there unless the district itself is drawn in such a way as to give them an equal opportunity to get to Congress to desegregate that place that builds highways, that place that builds railroad tracks, that place that builds airports, that place that provides tax incentives to corporations and where they locate and who they can hire. And if you want federal money, you have to comply with these laws to ensure that these people who have the longest bus ride to get to where your company is are treated fairly and given an equal opportunity to join the middle class. Todd, am I wrong in that?
You're not wrong in it. Here's where I think the distinction lies, and we've seen it in the progression of these types of cases, going back to the University of Michigan case in 2003. So
Todd, I'm at the 46. You know we got to come forward. I promise.
Let's come forward.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Dr. S. Todd Eury.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelenos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of the utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's giving us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foster, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Ask yourself this question. Is it really worth holding on to that timeshare that you know you need to get rid of? Here's the truth. The average maintenance fee just went up over 17%. That could have been 117%, and there's nothing you can do about it. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check for annual maintenance and assessment fees. I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. For 15 years, I've helped over 50,000 families cancel their timeshare. Not sell it, not transfer it, cancel it. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment and your maintenance fees would never go up? That's a lie. Are you ready to get rid of your timeshare once and for all? Simply call us and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit that explains all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your timeshare exit kit. 800-242-1551. That's 800-242-1551. 800-242-1551.
Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions. Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. S. Todd Yeary is a civil rights attorney and public policy advocate. Dr. Yeary holds a deep belief that honest dialogue creates opportunities to form strategic partnerships that strengthen families and communities. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and your show, The Politics of Our Faith. Hi, Todd.
Good to be with you, my brother, as always.
Todd, I did not mean
tough questions.
I did not mean to cut you off in the last segment. I'm going to let you pick right up on that, but I do want to say this before you. Can I throw this out at you? Right? For example, in the Democratic primary, I'm going to use them as an example. The American Israeli Political Action Committee has been looking at low-hanging fruit, supporting candidates to pick candidates who will vote for their war against Iran. That's happening as we speak. But increasingly, African American members of Congress who were not born in 1965, not born in 1970, not born in 1980, some born in the 80s, some born in the 90s, who know nothing about the Voting Rights Act or the ancient stones, these rocks that we place after we've made it over the River Jordan, are not in a position to defend the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And I'm wondering if these same organizations that decided to engage in Democratic primary contests, if they're going to now put up the same money to defend the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and or support the John Lewis legislation necessary to overcome what the Supreme Court has done in the Calais decision. That's our Exodus story. Or was their money being spent just to support their freedom in the Middle East against Iran while ignoring our 400 plus year sojourn in the United States? Todd, I had to get that out. The final 6 minutes, including your word of hope, is all yours But I lived this, brother. I lived this experience.
Yeah, the immediacy of I think the disappointment more than the shock of this decision. We've been talking about this for a while, that this would very likely be the outcome. The question would be, how would this court frame it? Depending on who you talk to, they may say, well, it's bad, it's not that bad. It's like saying, well, I'm breathing a little bit of carbon monoxide. Um, but what I've been thinking about as we've been talking is going back to the Kerner Commission report. There's a line about Black political power and having the ability to swing the outcome of elections. By and large, we found ourselves manipulated by both political parties, one on one extreme, one on the other, right? One, we're going to make a lot of promises, deliver on few. The other, we're not going to make any promises, and so we just don't care. And so we end up being caught in this game of diminishing returns to some degree. I think this is where the hopeful view that your father had when he ran for president in 84 and 88 has now been sabotaged to a great degree, because there's a sense that somehow or other Black folks' voter participation has been on the take, and the party that's taken it is not really all that invested in our interests. But if we're going to swing the outcome of an election, it's interesting that primary votes are family fights, right? It's like, what's the debate at the kitchen table to see who we want to represent our interests when we go out this door? But the general election is really about the outcome of who's going to set the policy conversation, and how do we swing the outcome of those elections, local, state, and federal, to make sure that there's always a substantive conversation when the maps are drawn. This is typically just statewide, right? We got to figure out what we're going to do about the House and the drawing of congressional districts and state legislative districts. We got to figure that fight out. We got to go back and revisit how we play the game of politics, and not game in an entertainment sort of way, but we understand these rules. The rules just got changed. How are we going to, we don't like the ruling, we got to figure out how we're going to respond to it, but we cannot use disengagement and lack of participation as a justification or a justified excuse.
Not an option.
We got to read it, we got to understand it, we got to apply it, and we got to react to it, and we have to counteract this notion that somehow or other we're trapped in our circumstances. Here's where I would leave it for a word of hope on today. It is that this is not a time for us to hang our heads low. It's time for us to lift our heads high and step back up to what this moment actually calls us to do. And it asks of us in this moment. Frustrated, yes. Disappointed, yes. Surprised, we should not be. The episodes of what's at the core ingredient of what helped to manifest this experiment called the United States of America is still there. The Bible tells us a little leaven leavens the whole loaf. And so we've got to address the yeast that is causing this thing to rise in a way that is counter to not only our interests, but the interests of the masses. And we've got to get back to remembering that we should never forget how we got here, lest we should relive it. And we are being forced to relive it decision by decision. It is time for the people to look up, to step up, to speak up, and to rise up and make sure that our voices are heard in the process that is set before us.
It's time for us to vote up now.
That part.
We've got to participate in this process. And Dr. Yeary has issued a call for us not to be indifferent about the process, but to be informed with a new determination, a new commitment to move forward. I hear here on KBLA in our regular commercial breaks that the primaries and the midterms are upon us. We cannot afford to sit it out. Everything about the structure of our DNA says at this hour, we must engage. Todd, I love you very much, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Love you back, my brother. Keep doing good work.
Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, The Politics of Our Faith, with Reverend Dr. S. Todd Erie. More when we come forward right here on KBLA.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.